So now, as I continue my exploration into the career of Phill Sheridan, I'm going to turn to my friend Hampton Newsome, the two-time winner of the Emerging Civil War Book Award. So I know he knows what he's talking about. And Hampton, you are just finishing work on a campaign study of the Appomattox Campaign. So first, just tell me a little bit about the book so we can now all be looking forward to it.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was looking for a new book project, and as you know, a lot of my other books are about things that people haven't heard a lot about, and so uh, I thought Appomattox Campaign. There's some very good books on that, but there's not really a long, detailed military study of the campaign, and I thought I would check it out. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. There are a lot of sources. A lot of people have said things about it. It hasn't been published yet. It's under review, under contract with University Press of Kansas, my friends there. And so we'll see how it goes. But it's been a lot of fun, and I was able to uncover some new things and uh, provide the interpretation of some, things people have talked about before. So.
Now, as I undertook this reexamination of Sheridan, my friend Jonathan Noyalas listed the Appomattox campaign as one of Sheridan's greatest achievements. So you've spent a lot of time on the trail with Sheridan during Appomattox. What's your overall assessment of his performance?
So this was the first book I've done where Sheridan plays a role. So I was kind of a blank slate. And I was willing to, or not willing to, I was kind of ready to take a very negative view of him because of other things people have written about other campaigns that he's been in. But generally, open book about him and about me, a whole nother story there. And I have to say, I came away with, on balance, a positive view of Sheridan. And I think on the positive side, the he's really the engine behind the success of this pretty complicated, difficult campaign. He has four divisions of cavalry. At times, he's commanding infantry corps, and he's really the driving force behind the campaign. And the campaign, as many people know, it's a multi-day affair. It's no mop-up operation at all. I had the pleasure of being able to work with Alfred Young, who's done work on strengths of Lee's army, and he's done a lot of research through the end of the war, which he shared with me and has allowed me to use in the book. And March 25th, when things are heating up at Petersburg, Lee has about 70,000 men total, not effectives, but total. When he leaves Richmond on April 3rd, he's got 54,000. And on the last day of the campaign, April 9th, at Appomattox, he's got about 35,000. He's got a strong force. Now, there are lots of issues that weaken the effectiveness of his force, but this isn't a trivial thing. This isn't just something that you kind of brush aside. This was a serious campaign. And Sheridan, he's in the thick of things throughout. And he's also he wants to be in the thick of things. And if you do a kind of a sports analogy, it's kind of like so we're now talking in mid-November. The couple of days ago, the Irish national soccer team won this amazing victory against Hungary on Sunday in the last minute goal. And the Irish striker, scored three goals. At the end of the game, in the interview, he said, I want the ball. I want to have the team on my back. I don't want to put that on someone else. And that's what Sheridan was like. He wanted the responsibility. He also wanted the glory. And there's some very negative things about Sheridan that we'll get to in a second. And but just to go through quickly through the things during his performance during the Appomattox campaign, he has this victory at Five Forks. Controversial. People talk about that. There are different views at it, but Five Forks is a victory, and he's there. On April 3rd, he begins the pursuit, Grant's pursuit, and he pushes the Confederates relentlessly at Namazine Church and Deep Creek. On April 4th, he makes this key decision to split up his force and send part of it directly to the the railroad, the Danville Railroad, and block Lee, something that people don't talk a whole lot about. But this was a key decision. On April 6th, he's really at the front making decisions at Sailor's Creek, which is a huge victory for the U.S. forces during the campaign. And then finally, at the end on April 9th and into the April 8th and into the 9th, he is the driving, his troops are the driving force, his division is the driving force in blocking Lee. So I think that's the positive. And I'll pause before we get to the negative stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
if you have any
And
thoughts or questions.
he moves with an alacrity that Grant really appreciates. Because Grant's army is also exhausted. Meade, commander of that army, is sick,
Yes.
so maybe not as springy as they might need to be under the circumstances. And Sheridan really kind of fills that vacuum to put the spring back in him.
Absolutely. And there is very little daylight between Grant and Sheridan. Grant trusts Sheridan and he gives Sheridan a very long leash, and Sheridan uses that. Whereas Meade and Grant, the relationship is, a little more strained. Meade is a different kind of commander. I've been talking to Jen Murray a lot about Meade and his performance, and that's a complicated issue. But for Sheridan, he has the green light and he pushes down on the accelerator. So
Yeah. I think about that correspondence between Grant and Lincoln, and Grant says to Lincoln that Sheridan says this can be finished if it can be pressed, and Lincoln says let it be pressed.
yeah,
So
let the matter be pressed. So yeah, so the and Sheridan, there's not a lot of direct communication during our Sheridan and Grant are not together many days during the campaign, but that doesn't matter. Sheridan knows what he needs to do and he pushes ahead. But let's get to the negative, okay? Because I don't want to I'm not saying that Sheridan is perfect or that he was perfect during this campaign. And I think there are three areas where he has some significant drawbacks. One is that it's just his sandbox skills, and his unfair treatment of he was not a great colleague, and you see this elsewhere in the war, and you see this during the Appomattox campaign. And so the first example, which most people know about, is his treatment of Warren at Five Forks. And Five Forks is not a big part of my book. I view that as more a part of the Petersburg campaign, although depending on who you talk to, some people count it as part of the Appomattox campaign. But I'm not doing a detailed tactical study there. But Warren, the conclusion, I think most people agree that he was treated poorly, that he didn't deserve to be sacked for his actions at Five Forks. At the same time, Grant was done with Warren. Warren did have a lot of drawbacks. He was sick of him. And Grant here they were starting on this campaign of maneuver to end the war. And Grant wanted the best people with him and best people commanding the infantry corps, the Fifth Corps, one of the major combat units of his kind of army group, if you will, because he's got Sheridan's men, he's got Meade's army, he's got Ord's army with him, and he wants the best. And so why not relieve him, Warren, at Five Forks? It was just a convenient time. So, but anyway, Sheridan is very unfair and callous during that time. Same thing 5 days later at Jetersville. There's a planning meeting, kind of a council of war with Grant, Sheridan, and Meade the night before Sailor's Creek. And they're trying to decide, do we go up against Amelia Courthouse where Lee is, or do we anticipate that he's moving west? What do we do? Sheridan has views, Meade has views, Grant has views. In their post-war writings, Grant and Sheridan are very unfair to Meade, and I think make very misleading statements about what Meade wanted to do. And of course, by the time they're writing this, Meade is dead. So that's another example there. And at Sailor's Creek, although Sheridan is there on the battlefield and he urges Wright, the Sixth Corps commander, to attack at Sailor's Creek, where Wright is maybe a little hesitant. In the aftermath, Sheridan is taking all the credit and in a very kind of unprofessional way that angers Meade and his staff. And that's just the way Sheridan kind of operates, and it's not pretty. So that's the first thing, kind of the unfairness. Sheridan also makes a bunch of mistakes during the campaign. The day after Five Forks, as most of the infantry are taking Petersburg finally, the breakthrough battles there, which kind of win Petersburg. Five Forks, very important, but it's also important that they're overrunning Meade and Ord's soldiers are overrunning the trenches there. Sheridan does this bizarre thing. He kind of spins around in circles west of Petersburg. He seems like he doesn't want to participate in it because he doesn't have a defined role, and it's almost kind of a selfish thing. And that's something that I dwell on a little bit. He also he doesn't he on the very last day at Appomattox, he kind of misplaces his troops so that the Confederate attack that morning is much stronger than it should have been, or much more effective than it should have been. A mistake. So the last thing, and then I'll zip it up. But he also has, he's very close with Grant, but he has this tendency to just ignore order. So at the very beginning of the campaign, he's supposed to be headed to North Carolina, and he gets to the James River south of Charlottesville here, and he doesn't cross, and he doesn't head to Lynchburg in North Carolina as Grant wants him to. He makes some excuse about pontoons and local troops or something, but he marches and joins Grant. He marches and joins Grant at Petersburg because Sheridan wants to be in the action there, but he ignores Grant. Grant's like, okay, I'm okay with that. He also, on that second day after Five Forks on April 2nd, Grant during the day, and this is not really talked about much, he wants Sheridan to send the Second Corps and the cavalry north across the Appomattox River into Chesterfield County. He sends several orders, several dispatches, and Sheridan just simply ignores those. And then finally, and most kind of core to the Appomattox campaign is that Sheridan has Ranald Mackenzie's cavalry with him in the first days of the campaign. This is Ord's cavalry, Army of the James Cavalry. And Grant tells him on April 4th, send Mackenzie back to Ord. But Sheridan waits for 2 days to send Mackenzie back. On 2 days after, on the 6th, Ord sends that ill-fated raid to High Bridge on April 6th, where all of that force gets captured. It's the biggest debacle of the campaign for the federal forces, and shared responsibility for the fault, but some of it is Sheridan. So those are some drawbacks about Sheridan during the Appomattox campaign. But on balance, I have to say that he comes out on top, in my view, because he is so effective and he is kind of the heart and soul of the operation.
That's a pretty big compliment, heart and soul of the operation.
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
pretty incredible assessment. So,
well, there are other. He's not the only one, but he's the central figure, I would say.
sure, sure. And I think I would agree with that too, just based on the fact that, he does get where he needs to be. He creates those opportunities to, block Lee and get, so I would agree with you that his performance there is pretty phenomenally effective overall. How much of Sheridan's problems, and I say problems, as we look at him today, and for those of us who maybe have a less than positive assessment of him, how many of those problems are really a result not of his performance on the battlefield, but his shooting his mouth off afterwards?
I think a lot of them are.
Yeah.
And he just does not, he's not a diplomat. He's he's boastful, he's vainglorious, he's insensitive, and those traits don't serve him well in the bigger picture. And he's very unpopular with some people. He's a very divisive figure, and you see the contemporaneous letters from his staff and from Meade's staff. Meade's staff can't stand him. They think he's an awful person, and they say so to their family back home and to each other. And Meade in his famous letters to his wife, he complains about Sheridan. But Sheridan's commanders, there's a great letter written right after Appomattox from Devon, one of the division commanders under Merritt, and he goes on about how he thinks Sheridan has really Sheridan put legs on the he put the legs on the infantry, I think he says, and really got people motivated to in this in Grant's pursuit to block Lee and to end the campaign. So yeah, I agree. I think that's right. I think it's a matter of personality, but that personality also serves him well as a field commander, as a combat commander, because he is unafraid to make decisions. He is not second guessing himself. And in some cases, in some work situations, you probably don't want somebody like that. You want
Right.
somebody who's a little more reflective. But if you're out there in 1865 trying to get a job done, he's the guy who's going to go through a brick wall to get it done. And that's what he did.
Great. Hampton, I appreciate your perspectives today. That's been fantastic. Lots to think about. So,
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me.
and good luck with the book. Looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
I'll let you know how things go with it, but thanks a lot.